Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to the MakeCode from Microbit show. And we're going deep diving into the beta of the MakeCode from Microbit 2020 release here on mixer.com/MakeCode. If you want to see us live, if you want to interact on the chat and ask questions, make sure to hook us up there. Follow our channel. Otherwise, we'll be on YouTube. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel to get notified of the new. All right, and today I'm going to be looking at redoing the video on third-party tutorials we did last week. There were quite a bit of hiccups, so it's probably a good idea to re-record it and move my mic a bit and kind of get it right. And if you have questions, feel free to throw that in the chat. So we're going to be going in MakeCode. And what we're going to be doing today is writing tutorials. Tutorials are these activities you usually do here. All right, so one way to get started that's really easy is you go to makecode.com/tutorial tool. This doesn't require any sign in or anything like that. And it's a two-pane tutorial tool. You can select Microbit here in the drop down. And basically on the left, you can author your tutorial, and on the right, you can run it. So you're going to do, I have this very simple tutorial here. I'm going to hit run. And that's going to start my tutorial with 2 steps here. And you're basically testing your tutorial live. So the way this works in MakeCode is that we have, let's see if I can zoom in a bit. We have here, so now all right, zoom up. We have, so tutorials, there's a bunch of docs about them. They're located here in the upper right. My own window here. And so you click here, you'll get the docs, but I'll run you through that. In a nutshell, you've got first level header. Second level header is a step. So step 1 is here, step 2 is here. You got your text, and you can create block sections by writing the TypeScript. So something like, this simple program. This little language snippet is going to be rendered as blocks in our tutorial. So if I hit run, you're going to have now a tutorial with a hint that shows you on start, and you're going to have the block here that's selected. And I can iterate that, so I can maybe add another step here. Step 2. So here it's going to be add code to display smiley. And then here it's going to be add another block to display more text. And now I'm going to say unhappy. And I can run this again. I've got 2 steps here. Just going to make sure that I got them right. So it's a nice iterative process here where you can quickly check that your tutorial is looking as expected. There's a lot of ways you can author tutorials, but this is the easiest one. And what you do is when you're ready, you hit share. And this creates a deep link. And the deep link, you can see that you've got MakeCode here. Then you've got this hash tutorial. Then you've got this then you've got this, this link here. So if I start this, ta-da, I'm running my tutorial. And I've got all my hints and everything. It's looking great. That's one way to do it. But what you'll find is that, well, you could lose this pretty easily, and eventually, if you invest time in your tutorial, you might want to host it somewhere that's more stable. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this. We'll take this and turn that into a GitHub tutorial. All right. So back in MakeCode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project, which I'm going to call Smiley Frowny Tutorial. I'll just that. All right. Create a new project. And let's go. All right. And yeah, so we are in MakeCode, and you've got a regular project. We're going to first turn that into a GitHub repository. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to click here. And hopefully I got the frowned. Because it doesn't like frowny. A tutorial show text. All right, so I can just do that. Go ahead, public. This goes through the flow of creating a GitHub repository for this project. And as I mentioned, it's really kind of a more stable place to put your tutorial and make sure it's never lost, and you can version it and things like that. All right. Yeah. Okay, so if you're authoring tutorials, you're not going to be using blocks within this particular project. But what you can do is delete this blocks file. Go and do that. So when you click on JavaScript, we'll have you can remove that. That's great. And we're gonna leave like that. All right, and here, actually, we're just gonna clear this. Leave empty. And because I made changes to my project, I'm just gonna go and commit that before I go any further. So I'm gonna call that a cleanup. Yeah, so good habit to commit these micro changes really helps when you go back and look at your history, and yeah, writing a comment really helps as well. All right, so that being said, we want to create a tutorial. Now I'm going to keep the README as my landing page for this project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new markdown file for my tutorial. I click here on blocks, and I'm going to call that I will call it tutorial for now. A brilliant name. Okay, and then we've got this new markdown file, and now I can go in and copy this. I started in the tutorial tool, and now I can start reviewing that. I have a preview here, so if you expand the docs, you'll preview your code here. So you can make some changes, and maybe I can add a step 3. Try it out on your microbit, yeah. All right, and if I re-expand this, you may have to wait a little bit. We will re-render and give you a preview in Markdown. This is how we render. We can also render tutorials just as text that you could print. But in this mode, you don't have the running through all the steps of the tutorial. Now you can do that in a separate fashion, which is by using these buttons. I'm just trying to. So yes, so if you look at this button right here, this button is the way to create a preview to test your tutorial within the editor. So just click on that. It will generate a local project that uses your extension, so you don't have to go through a cycle of publishing. And when that happens, you are testing the full tutorial in the editor as if you had loaded it from the web. So everything looks good. All my blocks are here. I like the text. I'm good. I'm just gonna close this. Okay, so I'm happy with the change. I'm gonna go and upload. You can see that we've added the file in our manifest. We have like an internal manifest to the files, and then this is the new sources of the tutorial. Added tutorial.md. All right. Now, how do we use and how do we access this tutorial? Well, first of all, it's very convenient to have a link from the main README of this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a section here. I'm going to call this tutorial. So that's going to be a link, and it's going to link to this page. I'm doing that because you'll see that GitHub page is going to render that line. So let me go and commit this. Added a link in the README. You can see all the changes I've made here. I can check that as well. All right. Okay, so I've got my tutorial here, and I'm gonna have my GitHub pages being rendered. So I'll have a nice, I have this nice landing page that is associated to my repo. And when it's going around like that, it means it's actually rebuilding. So there is a certain level of caching in GitHub pages, so it may need a few minutes, but our tutorial page should already be there. And you can see that it's there already in the rendering. All right, we're gonna fix it though, because we need this little bit of JavaScript here. Get the blocks. I'm gonna put that in my step. Make sure rendering works. It's probably something we want to improve in the future, but for now, you have to put it in. Should have restarted the pages. And going back to here, you see I have a link here. So, whoops. Yes, I need to make sure I put the right link. So it has to be something like that. So, all right. Fixing the link. And I'm doing that so that I have both a way to look at the tutorial and print it, and also a way to start it from MakeCode. And that way to start from MakeCode is this button here. Right here, the second button is going to be the share the share link. If I click on that, I'm going to get this link that you can start the tutorial with. Which means if I go here and I click that, I'm now starting the tutorial not from the shared script, but actually from loading my GitHub repository. That's a link you can share with your students. It's also a link we're going to conveniently put here. Just because now I don't have to remember that link. I've generated it. Do that. Start link. All right. So if you go back to your repository, what you'll get is This is the GitHub repo that holds your tutorial. And there is a link to the GitHub pages, so the website that's rendered after that. So you click on that, and it has, you know, information about how to edit this project and MakeCode. The block preview we want to get rid of. So we're going to fix that. It's got your links, which are not the greatest rendering links, but if you click on this, you're going to go to the rendered version of the tutorial. Hopefully my blocks are going to show up, but seem to show up. Oh yeah, there we go. So with the little JavaScript we added, it's going to render your blocks, which is great. And also have the start link. I can go and start that as well. Now there's one more thing you want to do when you're doing tutorial, and that's a very important step, is creating releases. This is something new we've added to help with versioning. So just like extensions, you're going to want to create releases for your tutorial. Do that in the GitHub view by doing this create release. And you can use any numbering scheme you want. Typically, a patch is a minor change, and this really applies to APIs, not content, but a patch is like a bug fix, like a typo, and then minor change, maybe you add a step, and then major change, you completely rewrote the tutorial. Most likely it won't matter, but it's important to do versioning, releases, because it helps us on our side, MakeCode with the cloud, to cache these releases, both in our cloud and also in the student clients. If you only use master, if you don't create releases, we don't know where you have these stable checkpoints. But when you create a release, we will always use the latest release you have. So even if you make commits and you make changes to this file, for example, I call that, you know, so if I make a change here, this change won't be picked up until you do another release. So if I were to leave this repository now, well, my users are not impacted because they're still looking at this version of the tutorial. In order to push this code back to the users, I need to go and create a release. So when you do changes to your to your tutorials, you have releases, you're not impacting anyone. So you can do all your commits, no problem. You're not gonna have people trying a half-baked tutorial. And then as soon as you're ready, don't forget to create releases. That will help both caching on the client and also on our side, caching in cloud. It's worth noting that we do cache GitHub, so you will see a delay between the time this is available, this is created, and the user actually trying to use a v002. That's why if you're doing any kind of testing, you want to use the local testing. All right, so there's a few things that are interesting to know. If you have a TS file, if you have some code here, we will add your tutorial as a dependency to the project, which means you can also package a few custom blocks. Let's have my famous do stuff block called the bazaar, and you know, I make this a block, so this is a custom block. If I test this, I should have, and of course, that, oh, testing the wrong page. I test the tutorial page. And of course, I should use this block. That's wrong. So let's go in that somewhere, steps. So if I use this block, everything goes to plan. Block should be now part of the toolbox, and it's not. Something is going wrong there. fix that for the release and close it. Right. Yeah, we don't want to go back. You just want to stay within the GitHub. So this should work. We'll have that feature in documented. In general, it's probably better to separate code and content. So if you're creating custom blocks, have it done in a separate GitHub, and then you can use it in any other tutorials you want. All right, so you can have as many tutorial files as you want in a single repo. So I can do tutorial 2, markdown. You know, let's say I copy this. I'm just going to say that, you know, I'm just going to change the tutorial here just to show that it's different. So let's say I do a tutorial here and I test that. I am now testing my new tutorial. So that's very important if you want to produce a number of tutorials, but you don't want to have 50 different GitHub repos to be able to do that. So it seems that we've got some issues with the, let's see. Dylan, if you're probably load a little bit and then reload the page, this may help. Yeah, when it's updating the editor, it updates the simulator and the editor at the different pace because they're different website. This might happen. All right. Okay. So let's see. So we've got multiple tutorials. Again, if you do a change and you want your change to be live, make sure first you save it. I'm going to go and added a second tutorial. And again, the changes I've made here are not live. So until I do a release, none of my users are going to see it. And when I do the release, there is still going to be a little bit of delay due to caching in the cloud and also caching on the client. So if you want to change, if you want to do a change right before class, that's not going to work out. You might want to use the tutorial tool. All right. The one note is when we do tutorials and you want to have tutorials in different language, you can also do that. And for that, we're going to do locales. So let's say I want to do a French version of tutorial.md. So I'm going to add something under a folder called _locales / and that would be the language code. You can find the language code if you're in Crowdin. And then you have to match the same name. So this is going to be the French version of tutorial.md. And what MakeCode will do is it will automatically, it looks like it's very unhappy right now. Got a little bug in the editor. Yeah. So we'll go and figure that out. I don't know if something happened there. All right, so I'm going to grab the text here and say I do the French version. Ajouter du code. Ajouter plus d'autres codes. All right. Ajouter encore plus de code. Now, how do you test that? So that's just roughly translated to French. Well, you test that, go into French. So go into the language you're testing for. So I'm going to go in French here. And I'm going to do the same process, meaning I'm going to go ahead and click on, so you can see the files are not here. Oh yeah, no, actually there was something cool. I'm going to click on here, partager. Wait, aperçu. So I'm going to do preview, and because I'm in French, it's now going to load the French version. So the way you test localize Tutorials is you first go into that language, you'll get more options. Actually, I forgot about that thing. So if you are in French, you'll get more buttons, including this button here. Show it here. Right there. And this button takes care of creating a new file, a localized file for that tutorial. So what I mean by that is that if I click on this, it automatically added for me a copy of tutorial2.md for French, for the current language. So you don't need to know the code. We'll figure out the code for you. And then what you need to do here is, translate. Ajouter du code, tralala. All right. Ici, we're gonna have, patati, patata. All right, so that's localized. Again, I can go and test that by clicking here. And it's loading my localized version of French 2. I can close this. I can commit my changes. So in order to work and localize your tutorial, just go in the language you're targeting and then use the new buttons. You can also create a version, but don't forget to create a version to release the updates. So that's roughly the flow to create tutorials in MakeCode, third-party tutorials in GitHub. And yeah, if you're investing time and you want a very stable way to store your tutorials and maybe collaborate with other teachers and things like that, definitely recommend it to use the GitHub integration. We've got a few new features there that are going to help you. And otherwise, all your code is stored there, which is great. It's never going to go away. Oh, we were going to fix this block preview. So block preview is a rendering of the blocks that's used when students are using the GitHub integration. We don't use that in the tutorial, so I'm going to get rid of that. Again, here I should probably add a second line, which is the tutorial 2 and tutorial 2, so that I've got my links. And update that. Let it upload. I can go and see my pages. Look good. If you hate this style and you don't like this style, quick tip, go to your GitHub repo and settings and scroll down to GitHub pages and change the theme here. So if we want to have something more flamboyant, a lot of cool themes. What are we going for today? A midnight theme. Yeah. All right. Tactile. Let's see. Just click that, and then it's going to trigger a build. Go here again. Wait a minute or two, and it will switch to. On. Waiting. Yeah, there's been changes, so we're gonna go and download that. I'm gonna go back to English here. All right, and back here. Oh, it's taking its time. All right. I don't know why. What's going on? Yeah, we set the theme a minute ago, so it may take a few minutes for a theme to go live. There we go. And we got our 2 links, which can render the pages. That's very nice. And we can start tutorial directly now in the editor. It seems that we're getting a cache version here. All right. The problem is the client right now is looking at an older release and it doesn't know that there's a new one. So this is something that will solve itself with time. That's the thing that happens with this GitHub integration right now, is that there is some level of caching in the cloud to make things more efficient, and you have to wait or the cloud decides to look at your list of release again. So the rule of thumb is that test locally, then publish your project, probably wait a day, and then everything will be fine. But if you share immediately, then you run into some problems. All right, and that concludes the custom tutorials in GitHub. So we've covered how to create them, the tutorial tool. We've covered also localization. So a whole lot of new fun stuff that are happening. And this is all part of the MakeCode beta deep dive, and hopefully that's helpful. So if you're looking to create step-by-step instructions for MakeCode, you can do that from the editor itself and ship that to your students. Hopefully that and helps you. So if you have feedback, feel free to ping us on the forums or live here on Mixer. And we're going to close the stream for today, and we'll be back with more action tomorrow.